Welcome to the Test Set. Here we talk with some of the brightest thinkers and tinkerers in statistical analysis, scientific computing, and machine learning, digging into what makes them tick, plus the insights, experiments, and OMG moments that shape the field. On this episode, we sit down with Hadley Wickham, Hall of Fame statistician, open source programmer, writer, and chief scientist at Posit. I'm Michael Chow. Thanks for joining us. You're the chief scientist at Posit, formerly RStudio, and you created this really great ecosystem of R packages for making data analysis delightful in R.
Yep.
And you work on the Tidyverse,
Yep.
which is a collection of tools in R.
I noticed you're wearing the Tidyverse socks.
Yeah, I've got a little, I'm repping the Tidyverse a little bit.
Nice.
You're also, I think you produced this sock.
Yep.
Is that?
Yeah.
But the Tidyverse is a collection of R tools to make data science easy and delightful in R.
Yep.
So I was hoping we could talk a little bit through the history.
Yep.
And maybe to start out, we could just go back to the very beginning, which is your very first data analysis.
So it would have been at the University of Auckland where I did my undergraduate in statistics. I don't remember my first data analysis, but I remember my first R code because I still have some of the files where it's like R code written inside a Word document that I clearly copied and pasted to run it somewhere else. But that was mostly we didn't really do data analysis in the statistics undergrad, which is a little odd in retrospect. So I think probably it would have been during my PhD when I really started to learn more about exploratory data analysis. And I also had an assistantship that was helping PhD students in other departments analyze their data. So that really, that's when I was really forced to be okay, now I've got to take this random PhD student in a random discipline with some data and some questions and think about how do I actually use what I know about statistics to answer those.
And you were it was sort of like a consulting thing, is that right? So you were rotating through.
But it was sort of interesting because you learn a little bit about consulting too, because you saw a bunch of different people, but also sometimes if the person didn't like the answer they got from you, they would try other consultants in the same team to see if they could get a different answer that they preferred.
Oh, interesting. So you're doing this is competitive helpful data analysis.
Well, kind of, because they're I want a significant p-value so I can publish this. And so if you don't give them a significant p-value, then they'll go to someone else and try again, which is so this fascinating reproducible data analysis and the reproducibility crisis and all this kind of stuff. You got to see that kind of firsthand.
Yeah, that's a pretty brutal, I feel like.
Yeah, but at the same time, nothing malicious, but just people trying, they've spent their last 3 years collecting this data and they want to be able to publish something for their PhD, and it's pretty tough to say no, sorry.
Sure, yeah, that's fair when they have they put all the time into, I guess, data collection and just got to this stage now finally where they're ready to publish.
And it's not they're just getting data out of a database. They're going out in the field, collecting data. I remember there was one case there was missing values because there was a bear in the field on that day.
Yeah.
So they couldn't even go to collect their data, or growing plants, stuff that takes years. That was also my introduction to just how people kind of naturally record data in Excel spreadsheets. And that is really what led me to a lot of work around tidy data, because I'm
cool.
I have no idea how to get this is I can look at this and be this is not the way I would organize it, but how do I why would I organize it a different way?
Yeah.
And then how do I get it from how it was to where it should be?
Yeah, for sure. And I seem to recall someone saying that you actually were wrangling spreadsheets as a kid, or had some pretty early.
That is.
You cut your teeth on spreadsheets pretty young. Is that?
Yeah, well, databases really first. Yeah, so I guess when I was about 15, I got really into Microsoft Access, obviously a very nerdy child, but I was really into it. My dad had like a lot of his career had been around databases, so he kind of like supported me in that. Like I had part-time jobs like developing databases like for his work, or had another part-time job like doing database documentation. So I was kind of like familiar with that. And then I also remember like one of Dad's friends at like Ag Research in New Zealand was like really, really into Excel, and he had like implemented a rotating 3D scatter plot in Excel, and I was like just like blown away by like how cool that was. Like, And then I also developed, like while I was in university, I developed a database for the Northern Regional Health Genetic Health Service, which is like one of the health departments that like helps people like do prenatal screenings and detect genetic anomalies and stuff. And then like I completely forgot about that. But then one of my friends like graduated from med school, ended up working at the Northern Regional Health Genetic Service like 10 years later, and they were like, we're still like,
oh, nice.
Like I opened it up and it had like my name on it, and they were like, we're still using your database.
Yeah, that's fun. I feel
and except because it'd been like 10 years with like no maintenance, they were like, your database is like everyone hates it. It's like flaky and unreliable. And I was like,
bittersweet. They're
sucks.
like, 10 years on, we still use it, it's still there, and we hate you for it.
But then they had to spend like $250,000 replacing it with something professional. And I was like, I was like vindicated again, because they probably paid me like $10,000 to develop it.
Yeah, geez.
Something, so.
And is it in your time, when you were doing a lot of the consulting and then in grad school, is it you ended up building sort of Reshape and ggplot2 out of those?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
And were people just building R packages at the time? Like what was that?
Not really. Like I guess I created my first R package when I did my master's at the University of Auckland. It was for visualizing microarrays, like the bioinformatics data. That package does not exist today, but I think that just because I was like at the University of Auckland, where you know the home of the birthplace of R, that kind of creating an R package felt natural. I mean, I guess like that sort of led to like this whole other thread of my work, which is like I started creating so many R packages that I needed to create other packages to make making packages easier.
Right.
And that kind of like spiraled into a lot of other tooling that just made my life and other people's lives easier.
Yeah. Like a lot of your early work too, working on like Reshape and ggplot, like they were pretty unusual for statistics departments.
Yeah, I think that's probably still true today. And you know, because my PhD thesis was basically Reshape, ggplot2, and then another paper on like model visualization, which is like really, you know, I didn't have like a bunch of equations, I wasn't like proving theories. So I was like pretty lucky, I think. Like I had a really supportive advisor, Dai Cook and Heike Hoffman.
Oh, cool.
That made that possible. Like kind of afterwards, like I sort of realized, like particularly at Rice when I was actually a faculty member, like there's a little bit of like kind of like PhD theses, like there's like some component of like mutually assured destruction, because like every person is both like the main advisor on someone's thesis and like an advisor on a co-advisor on other students. So like if someone like rejects your student, then you're going to be like, okay, well maybe your student isn't going to pass, and then like there's a spiral and no PhD student will graduate. So what that effectively means is like there's a lot of freedom. Like as long as your kind of major advisor is happy with what you want, with what you do, then you can get through. And that I was pretty lucky that I did that. And at the time, that work wasn't really understood particularly or appreciated, and definitely weird for statistics.
Yeah, thanks so much for the background. I feel like it's really incredible to hear how these sort of early packages got started. I think, one thing I'm really curious about is as you transition from more academic work and as you rolled out some of these packages and they got adoption, I know in like 2012 you joined RStudio, and I'm really curious what that looked like as you sort of had this little system of packages going and made that jump. What was that like?
That was like really a pretty amazing time for me because I'd moved, moving from academia where the packages were like kind of valued, but mostly like to prove in academia, like the packages had value, I had to turn them into papers somehow. And that sort of pushes you in this relentless path of like making new things. You can't write a paper about like a version update to a package. And that just didn't feel like super compelling to me. Like I could see all of these problems I really wanted to work on. So when I started at RStudio, it was just like this amazing, like there's nothing on my calendar. Like I can just spend all day programming.
Yeah,
and that's like basically what I did. And around that time, I guess that was sort of when I started like learning C++. And there was something about the process of learning that felt like I kind of got addicted to writing C++ code in the way 10 years previous, I was like addicted to playing like Age of Empires or whatever. Like there was something about this kind of perfect on-ramp of like challenge and results. And I got really excited. And like, I remember, I was like waking up at like 5 a.m. and like rolling out of bed and like starting to write C++ code.
Yeah. I saw you mentioned JJ helped you in C++. Are you saying you're like throwing emails at each other or like?
Yeah, we were like chatting. Like he wasn't, I was like reading books and stuff, but he was there like whenever I got stuck with something I couldn't understand, whenever I just needed to talk something through with someone, like he was there. And that was like incredible. That was like so valuable.
Yeah.
And I still think like one of the like best compliments I got in my life was when JJ described me as like an intermediate C++ programmer. I was like, wow.
There's
that's
something
like
about a like dig, like a kind of barbed compliment, I feel like.
But like someone like JJ calling someone an intermediate C++ program, that's like, I was like, wow. I never.
Yeah. And I guess for broader context, I forgot, JJ Allaire is the CEO, or president, was one of the founders of Posit.
Yeah.
And so
he was the CEO of RStudio at the time.
Yeah, and I do feel like something I noticed. So talking to some of the Tidyverse team, it does feel like over the next couple years there was this kind of like revenge of the C++ users, as I understand it. Like, so I heard something about like, so two people on your team, Jim Hester and Lionel. Who came in sort of around 2015, 2016, that there's something about like Jim Hester uses Vim, Lionel uses Emacs.
Yeah.
And so something about maybe you recruited kind of like a C++ nerd army.
Yeah.
And can you say a bit about their stack? And
yeah, I mean, I think that was the time where I was like, okay, clearly like C++ like opens a lot of doors, both in terms of like performance for R packages, but also connecting to existing tools written in C and C++. And when I got the opportunity through RStudio to grow my team, to hire some people, that was like very, very high on my list. Because, I was, fine R programmer, I was an okay C++ programmer, but that's where I really felt like there was leverage to like connect R to more systems, to make R packages that are faster and do more things. Cool. And then both like Jim and Lionel, I had interacted with a bunch on GitHub already, so they felt like, like they were kind of safe hires because I knew I could work with them.
Lionel mentioned that you, essentially after a little bit of collaborating, you sent him an email that was like, hey, I need C++ programmers.
Yeah.
Are you interested?
Yeah.
And according to Lionel, he said yes, but he didn't consider himself a C++ programmer. So for the next month, I think he just frantically studied C++.
Yeah, that's fun.
I don't know if that...
I did not know that.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me.
And I was surprised too, because I think at this time, as you're spinning people up, talking to the Tidyverse team a little bit, and this is one thing I'm really curious about, is your approach to tools, like what you choose to focus on.
Yeah. It was really around that time where I just had like so many R packages that I couldn't like work on all of them simultaneously. There's just like too much like context and background knowledge are going to load up into my brain. And so I started being pretty disciplined about saying I'm only going to like focus on this repo for now, and I'm going to ignore everything else.
Yeah.
And that's obviously going to bad because you end up in these situations where someone does a cool, useful contribution and just sits there for a year. But I decided I just had to do that in order to remain sane and a functioning human, and to keep making traction on stuff. So that batched, switching keeping my focus narrow, but regularly switching it between different projects. I think that has been super, super useful.
Yeah.
But it is really tough to get past that. People are doing stuff and I'm ignoring them.
Sure. Yeah, thinking about workflow. So this idea you're switching between packages and really focused on one. Another one I'm really curious about is forcats, which is around the time you kind of started the Tidyverse and the Tidyverse team.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a quirky package.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm curious is Jenny Bryan on your team told me that you were sort of anti-factor at the time.
Yeah.
So for background, forcats is a package to kind of wrangle factors and make them nice or fun to use. And I was surprised she mentioned you two just chatting basically she said you were anti-factor and she basically
Jenny
incepted into your brain.
Me. Yeah, I think that was both interesting because once I was once she persuaded me, the kind of switch flipped and I was like, oh, okay, I should create this. And I just felt there was this outpouring of for functions that I had always really needed but had never really noticed. And once I had the place to put them, it was super useful. And I think the other thing that I took away from that is just that importance of having this team of people I trust. When Jenny says something, even if I don't fully believe it or agree, I'm it's worth my time to really process this and think about it compared to some random person filing a GitHub issue that's not necessarily going to be convincing because of the people who randomly file GitHub issues. Most of them are they're not going to persuade me to create an entirely new package or tackle something a totally different way.
Yeah.
So that I felt that the benefit of having a team of people you trust and you work closely with and who can call you out on when you're making a mistake in a way that I wouldn't listen to if it was just coming from a stranger. That was pretty important.
I guess the last sort of situation I was really curious about is vectors. So I know Davis on your team started kind of doing other stuff, a lot of tidy models, and sort of got pulled into, really absorbed into vectors.
Yeah.
Could you say a bit about kind of that path he took? Because part of it's I'm so curious about how these people are either incepting you or kind of getting drawn to packages.
Yeah. And I don't even really remember how that. I think Davis started in tidy models, but I think he was always pretty interested in the low level programming as well, and that kind of drew him towards problems that kind of intersect, these sort of at the intersection between Tidyverse and tidy models.
Yeah.
And vectors was this attempt to try and pull out some underlying principles of vectors, and if you want to create a new vector class, what are the things you need to do and think about, and then how do we plumb those into the rest of the Tidyverse so someone else can, so basically other people can extend the Tidyverse without having to do pull requests into every single package. I'm still not, I don't know, we spent a lot of effort on that package. I'm still not 100% convinced it was worth it, or we could have found a way to solve the same problem with less effort. But it certainly did force us to really think about some of the low-lying invariants about data frames and things where base R is a little bit kind of murky or sloppy. There's, depending on, a base R has these recycling rules, which are basically when you have vectors of two different lengths, what happens? Yeah. And we kind of talk about recycling rules, there's one set of recycling rules, but if you look really carefully, you can figure out in different functions, I've implemented things slightly differently. So there's actually 3 or 4 different different variations of recycling rules.
Yeah, okay.
And so that was sort of interesting, and like really thinking about that, and that, you know, that ended up with our own like Tidyverse recycling rules where we only ever recycle vectors of length 1.
Okay.
But that you know, so that process of like really thinking about, and to me, the only way you can think precisely about any of these programming things is actually like program them and try them out, because that forces the vague ideas in your head to like a very concrete reality that you can actually like.
You're saying
confirm or
vectors is
deny.
like you all working through it, kind of.
Collectively, like
trying
with code to like keep us 100% honest about, does this work or not?
Yeah. I'm really curious about how someone like Davis goes from contributing to something like vectors to kind of being like the boss of vectors. Could you say a little bit about what that path looks like?
Yeah, I think it's like a pretty, you know, gradual process. And to some extent, like this happens to people like who actually work for the Tidyverse team, and just like ordinary, outside people who contribute a bunch, that just like over time, as you get, you know, more and more comfortable and you kind of have contributed to more and more parts, it just becomes pretty natural for, you know, the existing contributors to start to like cede authority and say like, you probably know more about this than us by now. So, and then soon like you're the boss, like you get to make the decisions.
And are you like just chucking them the keys, or are you like knighting them?
We have we have a little bit of a process. Like it's fairly informal, but we have a governance talk that we kind of have some steps written down. But really, like a lot of it, the governance process was kind of written initially to help me feel like safer, like giving the keys away, because that felt like pretty nerve-wracking at first. You know, now that I've done it like 5 or 6 times and no one's done anything like bad, everyone's been like really, you know, grateful to have the opportunity and, you know, taken the most of it. It feels like pretty easy for me to say like, hey, okay, you can now contribute to this directly without my required oversight.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And then just to get us out of the weeds, because I know there's a lot of package contributor chat. I'd be curious what you're interested in today then.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone, I guess, it's like AI and LLMs. So I've been spending a lot of time working on Alma, which is a package to call, you know, use LLMs from R. Which is really the kind of infrastructure to make it happen, like just making sure you can call ChatGPT or Anthropic APIs and get the results back in ways that are convenient to you as an R user. What I'm still like hoping to do more of is like really get into like, well, how can you actually use LLMs as an R programmer or as a data scientist to like make your life easier, better, more fun in some way. So I'm hoping to kind of get out of the weeds of Alma soon and get into actually like using this to do cool stuff.
Yeah, do you have a sense of how you'll kind of unpack that problem, like how to use LLMs effectively? I know you just mentioned like using it.
Not really, I guess. I mean, I think like it feels to me it's in the stage where I don't have any kind of big cohesive like theory in my head of how all the pieces fit together. And so that just means like trying stuff out, playing around, figuring out lots of like little things that might be useful, and the hope that like over time that kind of accumulates, and then I'm eventually able to say, okay, there's like 4 main ways you're going to find using LLMs useful, and those 4 ways can be divided up further into these 7 subways. But no, I have no real sense of what that is yet. Which is like, you know, it's this totally new thing, which is like both kind of exciting and a little scary, and like, you know, what does that mean to be a data scientist today? It's like very clearly very different than when I started my career.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's part of your due diligence in finding out how to best wrangle LLMs that you will need to do a little bit of vibe coding? Do you feel like that's part of the...
I think so. Like I've done a little bit of it, and I think it is fascinating and like empowering to be able to like tackle areas which I know like nothing about, and I can now get traction on pretty easily. It's also a little scary because I'm like writing code that I don't really understand. Like, where does it go from here? But I think certainly like it feels like LLMs kind of give you the ability to sort of be like like an intermediate programmer in like any language or any tool with like very little effort. And that's kind of exciting. That gives you the capability to do a lot of things you couldn't before. But like once you get past that like initial cool prototype, like where does it go from there? I think that's an open
kind of
question.
next step.
Yeah.
I guess the last thing I'm really curious about, which is kind of a total tangent, but is it true that you wrote a textbook on Shiny in exchange for a bicycle, a custom bicycle?
That is correct. Although it was not like, it was more like I gave Joe Jing, the author of Shiny, the gift of writing a book for him about Shiny because
in exchange.
Well, and then like after the book was written, he was like, "Oh, can I build you a bike to say thanks?" So
I love that.
Yeah, but it was like a mutual like I like writing books and he likes building bikes, so it was like a mutual. Yeah, it worked out really well. Like we both got to do something we enjoyed and got something that we wouldn't have done ourselves out of it.
I feel like it helps a lot too that I don't know how many people in the world love writing books. Like to just drop in and write a book for someone about their thing is that's a pretty big stunt. You're like, kick flipped over the Shiny docs, I feel like, basically. Because you actually do have so many books. Like, what do you like about it? Like what?
I don't know, it's just like some of us now I'm just like in the habit of it. And so it's just easy to keep going with the habit.
You just got to keep...
I do like that there is something, I think I do generally like this sort of like this tidying idea, like how do you organize information in a way that makes sense and is elegant and helps people learn it better. So I think there's something I find like intellectually satisfying about that. And there's something nice about writing a book about someone else's things because you can just be like, oh, and this bit's not like that good or it's a little bit fiddly to use. And like whereas when I write stuff about the Tidyverse, I'm like, oh, I should fix that.
Like tweak it.
So it's just nice and I can just like write the book like about this thing as it is without having to worry about like making it better as I go.
I mean, it's pretty wild. As I was like preparing for this discussion, I did at some point try to figure out how many books you're writing right now or have written. And I do feel like it was pretty unclear. I feel like do you have a sense for like how many books you're writing right now? Like how many sticks are on the fire?
There's like the third edition of the ggplot 2 book, which is kind of like on hold currently. I guess there's the Tidyverse design principles, which is also on hold currently. And the R in production book, which is what I'm trying to focus on, but I've mostly been pulled away into LLM stuff. So like 3.
Okay. Is there an LLM book cooking?
No.
Okay.
I think I do not want to write a book about LLMs.
Yes.
I've got like maybe once I finish like 3 other books, but I mean, but at the same time, like I've written a lot of vignettes about LLMs for the Alma package, so it's not a book, but there's still like quite a lot of writing going on there.
Yeah, geez. The Test Set is a production of Posit PBC, an open source and enterprise tooling data science software company. This episode was produced in collaboration with branding and design agency Agi. For more episodes, visit thetestset.co or find us on your favorite podcast platform.